initially I'd done this video, and it was like Sinead O'Connor. It was like, and then I watched it, and I was like, initially I thought, this is fucking brilliant. This looks great. And then I left it a few days, and then I watched it. I was like, oh, this looks a bit weird. Set the world on fire, like the fuse that lies within. Set the world on fire. Let me up and start again.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alicia, and tonight I am joined by singer, songwriter, guitar extraordinaire, Mr. Jack J. Hutchinson of the Jack Hutchinson Band. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. As good as can be in this sort of strange time that we're living at the moment. But yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to hear. Like we've just been discussing, haven't we, with lockdown and everything like that. But you are going to the cinema later, so that's some good news.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you zooming from at the moment?
So I live in St Albans, so I'm just north of London. So I've lived in London for about 15 years and moved to St Albans about 2 years ago. And yeah, it's quite nice around here actually. It's a bit posh. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm from Burnley originally, and yeah, I sort of missed the northwest a little bit. But yeah, it's quite nice around here at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, a little birdie has mentioned online that I did see that you are normally prone to having a swear jar nearby. So I've got you a little gift tonight. This is going to be our little...
Oh shit!
Yeah, going in. So drop.
You should do it for charity.
Yeah, see how many we can get in there. And also in your honour, you're wearing a hat today. You didn't disappoint. I've worn a hat for you as well. How many hats do you have in your collection?
Oh God, way too many. It actually got to this thing where I was buying hats when I was touring. I tend to buy either hats or band t-shirts when I go on the road, because I like to keep mementos of places I've been to. And I tend to buy bowler hats. They're my favourite hats. And yeah, I've got a large collection of them in different colours as well. I mainly stick to black in terms of when I go on stage and stuff, and for you know, for the rock and roll persona, I stick to black. But actually, in our new video, I'm wearing a red one, which was a hat that my dad bought me a few years ago that I've never really worn. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a bit too classy for me though, the red. It looks a bit posh. But yeah, I do have a large collection of them.
Awesome. No, I do love a good hat. They're a very good fashion accessory, and especially when you've got long hair like yourself. Right, it's a very, very special time for you, and I'm sure that you are having the best 2 weeks leading up to your new releases, which we'll get talking about in a moment. But just first of all, you know, everything aside, it's been a bit of a rubbish year for people this year, and especially for a musician. So I can imagine now you've got your music and you're able to put some releases out, you must be on cloud nine.
Yeah, it's been a really weird year where we obviously had a lot planned for the year. Basically on the back of my last album, Who Feeds the Wolf, that came out last October. So we got 12 months of tours in place. So we were going to go to Brazil, Russia, Switzerland, France, like all over. It was going to be a pretty crazy year and pretty awesome year. And we were actually right at the start of the tour when all this kicked off. And so we just had to sort of reevaluate what we were going to do with the 12 months. And kind of what I did was I just delved into songwriting and writing new material. So actually what would have happened would have been we'd have just finished the tour right now, and I would have started writing my next record over the next couple of months. But as it is, I wrote all the material whilst we were in lockdown earlier on this year. So yeah, we got back in the studio last month. We went to Momentum Studios down in Devon, and we did a week down there and started to record the new material, and we've got a brand new single out which is called World on Fire, which is I'm really pleased with how it's sounding. And we actually recorded World on Fire before all of this. We recorded that in Brazil, wrote it in the studio over there, and I think it's a really beefy rock track with a great chorus, and yeah, pleased to get it out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've listened to it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's really catchy. And obviously, your guitar playing on that track in particular, phenomenal. I love the breakdown. I'm excited for what people have got to say about this one. And it is obviously accompanied with a video on the 13th of November as well, isn't it? Which is in a live room setting, and you mentioned you're wearing your red bowler hat, so everyone should look out for that. In terms of the creativity, you know, with the music video and everything, who comes up with the ideas for that? Is that you're doing, or do you do it as a band together? How does that come about?
Well, in terms of the video stuff, my bass player Lazarus is really into that side of things, and he's got a lot of opinions that when we've shot quite a few music videos now. We always joke that he's sort of doing his Steven Spielberg on set, and he, you know, we work with a chap called Neil Collins who does our videos, and he's great, and Neil's quite polite in terms of getting the feedback from Laz, and Laz finds himself behind the camera, and I do have to say quite a lot, like, pick your bass up, man. You're actually meant to be the bass player in the band, not directing the videos. But you know, none of our videos are sort of Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin. I'm not on top of a mountain in a wizard outfit. They're quite straight ahead.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a massive AC/DC fan, and this sort of no frills videos that you get from AC/DC are kind of what I'm into. So let's just have the band, have the guitars, have the amps, and let's rock out rather than wizards on mountaintops.
Of course. Nothing too fancy. It's straight rock and roll. I love it. Obviously, you did just touch on the fact that the single has come about while you've been in Brazil. So Felipe, your drummer, he's from Brazil, isn't he? So I'm assuming that's how it's all kind of come about with you working over there. Talk us through the theme behind the song, if you can, because I'm sure when people hear it, it could be quite fitting for the lockdown situation. But you didn't actually write it in lockdown, did you? You wrote it prior to the pandemic. So can you just explain to us a little bit about how the song came about over there in Brazil?
Well, a lot of the material I wrote last year, which ended up on my last album, Who Feeds the Wolf, was kind of self-reflective on a personal situation I'd found myself in, which was to do with my dad had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, and basically was very ill very quickly. My dad was, he was, you know, a big champion of mine. He used to drive me around and, you know, and take me to gigs and heckle me at gigs, actually. But he was kind of like my roadie for a few years after he'd retired. And, you know, I think I wrote a lot of songs last year that reflected on that. And sort of World on Fire was a little bit at the tail end of that. And yeah, it was sort of reflecting on my own personal situation and my own personal world. It felt like it was falling apart a little bit at points last year, and so that single was going to come out in sort of May, June time of this year to coincide with festival season. And actually I had a few reservations about the title of the song, because I thought the last thing I wanted to do was to feel like I was capitalizing on the situation. And obviously the pandemic has had a massive impact on so many different people in a negative way. And the next album, which is actually going to be called The Hammer Falls, was going to be called World on Fire. So it was going to be the title track for the next album. And so we've actually changed it. And part of my thinking was around that, you know. But yeah, it's strange how songs suddenly take on even greater meaning.
Yeah.
And I guess it has got that wider scope right now, but it's weird because it's kind of got quite a poppy chorus. Like the chord structure is quite up.
Yeah.
So you're singing these lyrics about the world going to shit, but actually over a kind of pop rock chorus. But you know, it seems to work.
No, I think it definitely does, and obviously I'm really sorry to hear about your dad, but I think it's really important that maybe for a musician, what do you think it's important for a musician to express things that are going on in your personal life? Because obviously as a songwriter, if you are going to put your thoughts and feelings out there in a song to the public, to the world, it is essentially a bit of an intrusion of your mind, whether you want it to be or not, isn't it? And is that a scary thing to do, to put that on paper and then into a song which you're going to release?
I think so. Actually, I think the first couple of albums that I wrote were almost written in a third person. And I think, you know, looking back, not that it was something that I would have wanted to happen in terms of my dad, but it kind of just forced me into being more personal in my lyrics and my songwriting. And mainly because it felt like a situation where it's a strange thing to describe, but I kind of felt trapped within this situation whereby the struggle, and actually the struggle of seeing somebody who was one of my closest friends throughout my life, you know, a lot of musical knowledge that I sort of learned from him.
Yeah.
Seeing that knowledge kind of disappear, it's horrible, really. And so it just came out through songs, and there's a lot of stuff that I guess I actually had a lot of reservations about it initially, because I thought, well, maybe this is a bit too real, and it's easier writing in the third person, and you can distance yourself slightly from it. I wrote a song on my last album called I Will Follow You, which was a sort of acoustic-y Americana track that I had a really lovely message from a lady last week whose father had passed away, and he'd had dementia, and her son was going to play the song at the funeral. So she asked me to send the lyrics through, and I sent the chords through and stuff. She sent me this video of them playing it. I'll tell you what, he was playing it better than I play it. I think, it was just such an amazing feeling that I wrote a song and that affected people in that way, you know?
I bet. No, and I think it is nice that people can take music, you know, in any way and turn it into something that's going to be helpful to them and whatever situations that they're going through, because that's why we have music, isn't it? It's there to help people through certain times, happy times, tough times and whatnot. So it clearly, with that song and with other songs, you'll have hopefully have achieved that as well with World on Fire, which I'm sure you will. With you, obviously, as a songwriter, because I just want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, how you know, you do your writing and things like that. You've just touched on, you know, how it feels to maybe write in first person, so you like to do it in third. If it's autobiographical, you know, do you ever feel like there's a time where you think, oh, I might have to draw the line, you know, or are you willing to put everything that you know, maybe experience or whatever on paper and then on records? Or is there a point where you'll kind of go, oh, no, I can't talk about that?
I think there's certain songs I've written where I've probably felt like it's actually a case of like, is anybody going to guess who this song's about? Actually, I think that's perhaps where I wrote a song on my last album called Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, which wasn't about one person specifically, but it was about 3 different people. And I've told a few people who it's about, but you know, I don't really want to get into that, because it's kind of like, you know, I want people to take those songs and they can read into them what they want, and I'm sure people will listen to that song and go, you know what, there's such and such that's pissed me off and affected me in a certain way. And so it felt like quite a powerful thing, though, to open up in that way, and to access that side of creativity, which I'd not done before. And the weird thing with World on Fire was that I wrote that with Lazarus and Felipe from my band, and it's the first time I've done that. I'm usually quite you know, I like to write. I write a lot when we're on tour, and obviously we're not on tour at the moment, but you know, when you're in hotel rooms, you just mess around on the guitar whilst watching, I don't know, TV in Spanish or something. And
an idea comes to you.
I watch a lot of CSI when I'm on tour, and then just like 2 a.m. I'm watching TV.
Serial killers.
But that was kind of inspiring as well, because they had different ideas for things, and Laz is a massive metal fan, so he was kind of he was trying to get me to be more complex in the songwriting process, and I think people will hear that when they hear the album, that it's more moved away from the 12-bar blues stuff that I was doing 5 years ago, and we're trying something a bit different, and it'll probably alienate loads of my blues fans, but maybe I'll just stick like a turnaround right at the final bar of the album, just do a turnaround. Jazz hand.
And I mean, obviously, talking about songs, you have announced that with World on Fire, for the CD vinyl-esque release and the digital downloads, there's going to be a B-side, so a bonus track, and it's called
Ghosts of Yesterday.
Perfect. And obviously, I've listened to this track. It's fantastic. It's just as amazing as World on Fire. So I'm really, really excited to see what people, you know, have to say about this one. But for you writing that song, you couldn't obviously go and be in Brazil where you were when you did World on Fire. So what was the contrast between having to write, all three of you, and record in your own houses individually, and then send your, you know, your songs off to Brazil to be mixed and produced? What was the challenge with that in comparison to writing World on Fire when you're actually there in person?
It was weird because I wrote Ghosts of Yesterday like the week we came off tour, when, you know, after Boris had made that announcement that the world was, that the country was going into lockdown.
Yeah.
It just came out. It was weird, and I was kind of sat around, like, I find it hard coming off the tour anyway, to be honest. I find it really kind of mentally weird when I've been, you know, traveling around, and it's cool because you go and play gigs and everyone treats you like a rock star.
Yeah.
And you're back at home and it's like, oh, I better go to Iceland now and do the shopping. It is a bit weird, but yeah, I found it a little bit weird. And anyway, that song came out, but we were just sort of sending files via Dropbox to one another and getting suggestions backwards and forwards. And then yeah, we've all got like home recording equipment, so I said, like, guys, why don't we just try and record something and see what happens? And then Lucas, who's the producer over in Brazil, really cool guy who did World on Fire, he was just like, well, send me the files and I'll piece it together.
Nice.
So it was quite a, you know, he sort of sent one back, and then I was like, okay, we kind of need to tweak bits, and we actually worked out a really good way of doing it. And it's unlike any recording I've ever done before, but I'm really proud of it. And I think it's a statement of a moment in time as well for me. Mm-hmm. That it was just going to be the B-side, but I think it'll probably be on the album, because the initial reaction is that people are loving it. So yeah. I think it'll probably go on the next album as well.
Perfect. Obviously the next album is The Hammer Falls. And is this album title anything to do with Queen's Hammer to Fall? Because it's very similar.
No, I just want to give away blow up balloons with the vinyl copy of the album. No, it was actually to do with well, various things. I've obviously mentioned that it was going to be called World on Fire.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Actually, I should say with that, we changed the title, and I made a few social media announcements about it.
Right.
And then I saw, like, there's a few bands have got World on Fire as either song titles or like King Creature have got their new album. That's called Set the World on Fire.
Yeah.
Obviously, Slash had an album called World on Fire.
Kennedy, yeah.
And I was like, guys, it's a good job we changed that title, because everybody's fucking using it. But anyway, it was just like when we were coming up with the new album title, there's several tracks on the album that have got, I think, really cool track titles, and I said, well, maybe they'd be better as the album title. And The Hammer Falls felt like, because all these songs have been written in this sort of chaotic moment in time, it was almost like trying to see things in a positive light, that almost like we're hitting a sort of full stop, which gives us an opportunity to start afresh and start anew. Yeah. And try and be positive about this situation. And I don't know what you felt over this year, the course of the last 10 months, but it's actually, I feel like it's given me a bit of time to self-reflect, and I've been like hitting it hard for sort of 5 years. And
yeah, you've done tour avenue festivals, and you've just been on it, haven't you, with releases as well. So I bet for you, like you say, time to reflect is quite nice. Yeah,
and sort of stop and kind of go, do you know what, where do I want to go next?
Yeah.
And so maybe the title doesn't explicitly say that to people, but that's what it means to me.
Yeah.
And also, I was watching loads of the series Vikings in lockdown earlier on this year, and I think I got all Viking-y for about a month, and it was like, let's get loads of tattoos. Yeah, I was trying to like put my beard in plaits and stuff.
Yeah, nice. And obviously, The Hammer Falls is due out in spring next year, so obviously everybody can keep an eye out for that. And obviously, in the meantime, you've got your releases on the 13th of November. Going back to the video as well for Ghosts of Yesterday, I love the little teaser trailers that we've been obviously able to see through your YouTube and your social media. And obviously with this one, I thought it was a really cool concept because World on Fire has got the live setting, which is really cool, like you say, and it's AC/DC-esque and it's really cool. But with this one, it is slightly different because you are a ghost and it's really fitting for spooky season. So can you just talk me through that? Because the contrast between what you love, you know, in a music video is different for Ghost of Yesterday.
Well, aside from doing the music, I do visual art as well. I make drawings and that's the thing.
Yeah. So
the artwork side of things, I've made video pieces previously that are in a different way to Laz. I mean, Laz is great at coming up with concepts for rock videos, whereas a lot of my abstract ideas you would never use in a video for World on Fire. So I kind of shot that the week that it was John Lennon's 80th birthday as well, and so I was watching tons of John Lennon stuff, and there's a sort of tip of the hat to the Imagine cover and that kind of thing. Yeah. But the full thing is pretty cool, and I think it's worked out quite well. Initially, I'd done this video, and it was like Sinead O'Connor. It was like, and then I watched it, and I was like, initially I thought this is fucking brilliant. This looks great. And then I left it a few days, and then I watched it. I was like, oh, this looks a bit weird. I need to shake my head or something. But it was like I redid it basically, and then started layering this stuff up, and then it does look like I'm a ghost. It looks a bit spooky. So yeah, it's perfect for Halloween. Yeah,
of course. I love it. Honestly, it's right up my street. That's my vibe. But yeah, it looks brilliant. And obviously, you just touched on the fact that you obviously are an artist. So for anybody that doesn't know, you studied fine art and drawing at university, didn't you? So
I did, yeah.
Obviously, one, can we have a chat about that? But then two, how much has, you know, your abilities in art positively impacted, you know, the artwork in your band? Because I'm assuming that you will have a say in that, if not you're the one creating that. Can you talk me through your time as an artist as well as a musician?
Well, you know, I had a studio in East London in Bow for almost 6 years, and I went to Wimbledon. I did drawing at Wimbledon, which I think is where Jeff Beck went, right, back in the 60s. But yeah, I kind of, for a period in time, it was just that I met a lot of musicians through art school. That was kind of, everybody seemed to play an instrument that I was studying with, and I just really enjoyed that mix of creative people when I was there. And initially when I moved to London, I planned to just stay here for a year and study art and go back to Burnley, but it kind of got me hooked on creating music, but also artwork. And I had a series of exhibitions and shows for quite a few years, actually. I guess I was a professional artist for about 5 years after I left college. But the thing is, with the music just kind of took over, and I was in different bands as like a session guitarist and that sort of thing, and ultimately I just didn't have enough time to go to my studio. So I still make drawings, but not in the same quantity that I used to. But it's what was interesting about the visual art world when I was trying to be a practicing visual artist was how ruthless it can be, and in the same way that the music industry can be. But I found that one of my last big shows before I sort of concentrated on music, I remember I'd worked on this drawing, and I make these drawings using a magnifying glass, making thousands of tiny marks on paper. So they're abstract images, but when you move close, you can see an image. And I'd spent months creating this artwork, and there's a chap who was stood next to me at the opening. I don't think he realised that I was the artist, and he just stood there and he went, "This does nothing for me." And it was so like heartbreaking in a way. And with music, you can obviously play a show, and you get people who sometimes don't dig it, but then again, you have like 200 people who do. So there's something more for me in terms of playing live music and playing music in general that it's just more rewarding. And I will continue to make artwork, but yeah, it definitely informs my approach to like album artwork and things like that. I have a clear idea about what I want.
Of course. And obviously, I mean, I could tell you're into all that kind of stuff, like your backdrop, the tapestry is pretty cool. That was, you've not made that, have you?
I didn't realise that was there.
It's very fitting for Halloween Eve. Yeah, so obviously you've just taught me through the art kind of side of your life, but was art then the first love for you? It wasn't music, it wasn't songwriting. Is that the case? Because obviously as a guitar player, you're an incredible guitar player as well. So, have instruments always been in your life? Which came first?
I would say that probably, yeah. I mean, I was a drawer when I was a kid. I was always copying. I was quite entrepreneurial at school, I would say. Actually, I used to flog these drawings I did. I do caricatures of like football players and sell them on my lunch break. So that probably helps. That probably helped save some money for my first guitar. But yeah, I think the guitar equipment. I don't know. What am I trying to say? I've got a sort of passion for guitar that I think is different to drawing now, and it's weird to say this, and it sounds a bit, I don't know, it sounds a bit weird, but the way I play guitar solos is a bit like how I draw, and it's about trying to lose myself in that moment. And so I don't write guitar solos. When I play solos, even a studio setting, it's about trying to almost sort of lose your mind into that moment, in the same way I make drawings. So I do feel like there's a crossover. One of my favorite artists is Jackson Pollock, and actually the way that I see guitar solos is almost like one of his paintings. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I need to probably get a thesaurus out and look up some words to fully explain what I'm trying to say. But I definitely see them as being interlinked.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could start doing some drawings now. Sign them, Jack. Flog them now. 2020.
Yeah.
Well, the money.
Well, I did some artworks for the World on Fire single that I've basically hand drawn the cover, and I initially did them for our Patreon members, and then I've put them up on our site. And I tell you what, that's been a major thing for me this year is the merch, because we've had no income from gigs really, so being able to sell stuff online has been a bit of a lifesaver for us. And all these awesome people that are buying my stuff, I mean, it's been really heartwarming to see it, and they've liked the drawings.
That's always good, isn't it? It's good. I saw like that guy at the art show, and he was like, "It's not for me." But I guess his reaction has set you up for the music industry, because it can be savage, can't it? In your career so far, what experiences have you had that have given you, a fire in you, maybe as a negative one that you've ended up propelling it into something really positive? What's been the best thing and what's been the worst thing about the industry that we're in today for you so far?
I think that I grew up playing gigs in Burnley and playing in like working men's clubs and things like that, and that was a pretty savage introduction to playing live music. You couldn't really muck around, and I think when I moved to London, it was just like, well, whatever, I'm not going to get punched if I'm too loud in this setting. You know what I mean? It was. I think actually, the hardest moments for me in music over the last, I've been doing this quite a long time, 15, 20 years really in different ways. The hardest moments are when bands fall apart, and actually when you've invested not only time but a kind of energy in a relationship with other musicians, and when it doesn't quite work out, that's upsetting, and that hurts more than if somebody listens to your album and doesn't like it, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. But if you feel like you've got a close relationship with somebody, and they're not necessarily screwing you over or something, it's just like any relationship, it can fall apart. Which is why I feel really fortunate with Laz and Felipe that they've been my band for just under 3 years now, and we get on really well, and they look after me actually, which is a good thing. I feel like they understand the amount of energy I put into this, and they have got my back with things.
Mm.
Whereas in other bands I've been in the past, it's not quite worked out that way. And
yeah,
it's a wit and say, but that's kind of the thing that's been the hardest. And you know, I've had crap reviews over the years in certain things, but then again, fortunately, I've mainly had good reviews, and I kind of focus on. Everyone goes, "Oh, don't focus on the reviews," but you do. If you get a 9 out of 10 in classic rock, you're going to tell everyone.
Cheers, classic rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, for you, you've just mentioned there the little three of you, Felipe, and Lazarus. What do you think the magic is between all three of you? You know, that carries the Jack Hutchinson Band in live shows or through recording. What's the magic between you all, do you think?
I think that we're mates, and I guess I've been in bands with mates in the past and actually steered clear of it for a little while, because I think sometimes that can be an issue.
Yeah.
But they came on board basically because a previous band I was in, the guys that were in it couldn't do a tour, and I was like, I'm gonna still do the tour, I'm just gonna hire 2 session guys.
Yeah.
So Laz and Felipe were the session players for a tour that we did. But then we just got on really well, and because they came in on a pro level as well, I think they saw me as the big bad boss for about 6 months until they realised I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. I needed their help. But they're just really sweet guys, and it doesn't mean that we get on all the time, but it's the ability to have an argument and then resolve it quickly. And when we do have arguments, we've got a common goal, which is basically to make the best music we can. So we're not having an argument for the sake of it, or because somebody's got an ego and they want to be the boss. It's that, you know, I'll give you an example actually, is that when we were at Momentum last month, and we were recording this new song on the new album, which is this kind of like quite dark track that's called Angel of Death, and it's quite moody and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I wasn't digging this particular way that we were playing this part, and it was like we'd gone into like a funk element on the middle eight, and I just wasn't having it. And we had like this heated debate for about 30 minutes about this part, and you know, we ended up agreeing on how to change it. But for that 30 minutes, it was like we were going to kill each other. But then you eventually arrive at a consensus.
Yeah, like a happy medium there.
The consensus was that I was right, but that's not always the case. But I think that a lot of bands fall apart because they can't communicate in that way.
Yeah.
And that's what you're always striving for. And, you know, it even survives, like, I don't know, like the fact that Laz is a Spurs fan and I'm a United fan, and we have a joke about that. I don't know. It's difficult to put a finger on why we get on so well, and we do. But we've been through a lot as well in the last 3 years. And when I mentioned earlier on about my dad being ill, we stayed at my parents' when we were on tour with Chris Barris last year.
Yeah.
And we stayed at my mum and dad's maybe 3 days because we were playing at like Leeds, and it was quite relatively close to Loughborough to stay over, and saved on hotels. And I remember the guys sort of staying up with my dad and chatting to him, and the next day we went for breakfast, and just being really caring guys, like really sweet, and it's something that I'll never forget. So,
of course. I think, working as a team and being able to communicate is obviously one of the key, elements of being in a band, because we've all heard of the bands that, have fallen by the wayside because they can't get on, or egos get involved and whatnot. So it's really nice to hear that you guys, I think a bit of competition and a bit of, opposing ideas can sometimes help your creativity, which is a good thing. But it's nice to know that you all can, work through things and you create the music you create, which is fantastic. So just then you obviously mentioned that there's going to be another song on the album. Can you give away any extras that no one's yet heard of in terms of themes or what to expect sound wise from The Hammer Falls? Can you give us any secret?
Yeah, I think that I feel like I've worked on several releases now. I've had 4 albums out.
Yeah.
And I think all the other albums have been songwriter albums, and a massive influence on me has always been Neil Young, and I approach music from a songwriter's perspective rather than a guitarist's perspective. And I mainly write on acoustic, and then it comes to the band, and then we work them into electric songs. The difference with the new one is that I've written it all on electric, and it's a different approach to come from a guitarist's perspective. And so a lot of the songs have quite heavy, complex riffs that we worked up as a band, and so the structures of the songs are quite they just take one a different journey. But then it was what I wanted to do was then all these songs have really killer choruses and verses, so everything is a hook. So whether you've got a guitar from the beginning, whether it's the verse, the middle eight, it's all really strong melodic rock, which I've had in some of my previous songs. There's a song called Justified on the last album, which did really well, got loads of airplay and stuff. And it's a bit like that. So it's a bit like Justified. And there's a track on there which I think is going to come out as a single in the new year, which is called Call of the Wild, which is it's very AC/DC. It's almost like too slow. Like we recorded it purposely this way, but it sort of lumbers across the hill. We really like that one. The Hammer Falls, the title track. We set out to try and write a song that was like Master of Puppets, so like an 8-minute sort of mental track. It doesn't sound like Master of Puppets, it sounds like Jack J. Hutchinson, but I'm so pleased with that song. And so there's just some cool stuff on there that showcases guitar as well as melody and vocals.
I love that, because I think that's a key element for you, because obviously with the new track World on Fire and with Ghost of Yesterday, we hear, like I mentioned earlier, the breakdown and the little, I don't want to give too much away because people haven't heard it yet, but it's brilliant. I'm really excited for people to hear it. So on a separate note, have you got a motto, a saying, or a quote that you like to live your life by?
Well, I think the thing that goes through my head a lot that's a really interesting question. I guess it's always been it's I don't know whether I should give this away, but it's a song title that we're going to use on the next album. But it is definitely that what I actually think about a lot, and it's to do with not giving up. But it's like, what doesn't kill you just makes you stronger, and we've definitely got that attitude as a band. I think that was sort of ingrained in me when I was it's probably about 12, 13 years ago. I basically got really ill and I couldn't play guitar for about a year, which stopped me playing guitar. I didn't play again for about another year. And I got this thing called reactive arthritis, which basically I couldn't play the guitar. I couldn't actually walk for about 3 months, but I had loads of physiotherapy to kind of relearn stuff. And once you've had something like that, it does change your attitude, because then you know, when you get we've played a lot of gigs where you maybe share a bill with somebody and the other band are like freaking out over the shape of chips or something on the rider, and I just think, fuck off, you know. I just don't get that, and I think there's much bigger things to worry about in the world, as this year has proven. And you know, when people try to put you down, you've just got to keep going and stay confident in what you're doing and stick to your guns. There's lots of points where I've made decisions within my music career and, you know, thought, is this the right thing to do? And unfortunately probably screwed a few people over by doing so. But I mean, in terms of like shaking up lineups of bands and things like that, and that's pissed people off. But I'm ultimately trying to do the best thing, and I think you've just got to stick to your guns with this stuff and see where you go. And then in 30 years you can look back and go, I ballsed it all up. But at the moment it seems to be going all right.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think that that's a really positive message to send out. Just because of what you mentioned, you know, with the illness you had 13 years ago, do you still, you know, are you still impacted by that at all? Does it impact your playing even now, or has the physiotherapy really helped to improve, you know, getting back to how you were when you originally could play guitar?
Well, I'm not affected by it now, and part of the reason for that was I basically took up exercise, and I do a lot of exercise. I go running a lot, and I play football.
Yeah.
And I didn't really do that. And I didn't really do that beforehand. I eat a lot better than I used to do.
Yeah.
I do drink a lot, and people kind of joke about that. But yeah, I just had to adopt a different lifestyle, because I think before that I was basically just driving myself into the ground, and I was doing too much, it goes back to what I was saying about trying to do the visual art and the music and everything. I just was doing way too much, and I've got quite good, maybe this is a reason why, if I feel like things aren't positive for me in terms of energy levels, I make a decision quite quickly and go, I'm not going to engage with this anymore. Right. Because I think what caused it was stress for various reasons, and yeah, I think the life of a musician is pretty hard, and I think touring is tough.
Yeah.
And actually, although it's been shit to not be on tour this year, there's been elements of it that have been great, because I've been able to recharge my batteries a little bit.
Yeah.
Which means when we can finally get back on the road, we can come back stronger, I think. But yeah, it doesn't affect me anymore. I think I did a lot of work to get over it, and I remember. Okay, sorry if I'm waffling on here.
No.
Basically, but there was a moment when I played guitar live for the first time, and I'd been playing in bands since I was like 14. So I was like 23 when it happened. So I got back on stage at this open mic night in maybe Nottingham or Leicester or somewhere, and I played, and I sucked, because I'd not played for ages. It was actually a challenge for me to actually play the guitar. Really, I felt tired after it.
Right.
And this guy came up to me and he went, I've just got to say, mate, that was shit. And I was like, mate, 3 months ago, well, whatever, longer than that, it was probably about 10 months. I was like, 10 months ago, I couldn't even fucking walk, mate. I said, so I don't care. And he sort of trundled off, and I thought, it's like anything, those moments stick with you, and actually it just spurs you on to try harder. And it's like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And you know, we talked earlier on about like reviews and things like that, and I remember when my first solo album got reviewed in Classic Rock, and it got a 9 out of 10 in Classic Rock, a mag I'd been buying since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And those moments flash in your head, and you think about that idiot who was so rude to me.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of reward.
Yeah.
Quite funny, really.
I know. I mean, you've met a few honest people in your life by the sounds of it. I'm not. You're really unlucky. You just meet the people that are quite gobby.
Yeah. But then you kind of, to be fair, I was pretty bad, and I needed to do that to get better. And it's the same with anything, you know. I remember we played. We've played so many gigs over the years that you look back and go, well, that could have been better. Or those ones where you go, that was incredible. And I remember we played Blues Fest at the O2 a few years back, and I met Jimmy Page that day, which was just incredible. And I met Jeff Beck and all my heroes, really. And my amp blew up about 5 minutes before we went on stage. So I had to play the gig. They didn't have a spare amp.
No way.
I had to go through a bass amp, so there was no and so I was on stage, started the set, and I just thought, this sounds like dog shit. And then the reviews from the gig were great, and everyone was that was a really great set. I love that tone you had on your guitar. It sounded really different. And it's like, yeah, it's because you're going through a bloody bass amp. But you can't just stand there on stage and cry. You just get on with it, and but it made up for it.
What don't kill you makes you stronger.
Absolutely, and it made up for it. Like 2 hours later when I was stood there shaking hands with Jimmy Page and thinking to myself, I'm not going to wash my hands for a few days after this.
Yeah, you don't tell him about the bass amp. Should have borrowed it. Should have asked him, can I borrow yours? Right, so obviously you mentioned a lot of the gigs that you've experienced and the tours and everything. 2020 has massively impacted every musician's plans for this year. But for you, what have you got coming up for the remainder of October and the remainder of the year and into next year? Aside from the releases, are you able to mention anything that you're going to be hopefully playing?
So we are going back to Momentum Studios. We've got two sessions booked for that now. Mm-hmm. So the aim is to complete the next album. So really, aside from World on Fire coming out, the new album will be the focus for the next 2 or 3 months. We've got a few shows that we're working on at the moment, and we're essentially going to do some live stream shows, and we've done tester events for these early on this year, and they're quite good fun. Yeah. But what we're actually going to do is this is interesting. When you do these live streams, right, when you travel round and you go to Brazil and then fly back, we did a show in Sittingbourne, and then we went to Spain.
Wow.
Like, you could play similar songs
in
your set, but it's a different audience every night.
Yeah.
And you're in a different place, and so everything's kind of different. So the songs remain the same. It's a good name, that, isn't it? But then when you go to when you're doing live streams, you obviously have your core fan base that tunes in. So if you play the same tracks every time, it's just really boring. So we're coming up with a way of doing basically a run of shows that are different in terms of the set list. So we are going to do a night where we do 2 sets. So we do a set which is essentially like all my songs. So we might do Paint No Fiction album in its entirety. And then the second set, we're going to do a full set of like Led Zeppelin songs. And the next week will be like Who Feeds the Wolf, but then the full set of Black Sabbath songs. So we've been rehearsing, and we're going to do these sort of band-themed evenings. So it should be quite interesting. And a load of songs that I've not played really since I was a teenager live when I was in Cup. So this should be quite good fun.
Of course.
So we'll have details of that pretty soon.
I was going to say, can you not... Yeah, you haven't got a date yet then for the first one.
We have got a date actually, but we're trying to rejig a few things because of potential lockdown situations, and we want to get to the priorities to get to Momentum. So we're just shoring up the dates for Momentum Studios, and then we're going to announce these dates. But I think they're going to be announced on the 13th of November when the single comes out. So we'll have it soon.
A lot of stuff coming from Jack J. Hutchinson Band on the 13th of November.
Yeah, I mean, but then what we should do when we do like the Led Zeppelin one is do we're just going to do like Moby Dick extended version followed by The Jamaica and all these, so everyone will tune in like this is going to be great. We'll just do all the random tracks, but yeah, it should be quite good fun to do it, and it keeps us ticking over. We're still planning tours, and part of the thing is at the moment we don't know when we can get back on the road. So we've got dates that are scheduled in for April, May, June, but at the moment, are they going to happen?
I know. It's
tough.
Yeah, of course. Well, finally, on the final note, have you got a message that you'd like to send out to Jack J. Hutchinson Band fans, followers, lovers of your music? Have you got anything you want to say to them, and anything that you need to let them know?
Buy the CD. No, I'm only joking. What I would like to say is, this year it's been so hard for everybody, hasn't it? I mean, no matter what job you're in, everybody's been affected by the pandemic, and musicians have been affected in a particular way. We can't go out and do our jobs. We can't go out and earn through playing live shows. And so all of this online activity that we've churned out over the last 6 months, which people have been supporting, it means a lot to us. It means a lot to me, Felipe and Laz, the people who supported us through this period, because there was a very feasible reality back in April, May, where we might have had to call it quits because we had no money coming in, and
Right.
so we owed money on the last album that we were like, well, if we're out on the road for 2 months, we'll have paid that off, and then it's profit for the next 6 months. So we were in a bit of a sticky situation, and so everybody that's bought our bootleg series, live albums, all of the singles, all of the T-shirts, and all that stuff, they probably don't realise that they've actually saved us in terms of being musicians. So we hope that in 2021 we'll be back on the road. And I was about to say the first round's on me, but I've said that to so many people that it's going to put me in debt again if I end up.
I'm going to say you're going to need some more merch out because people have to pay for all these drinks you're offering.
I know. So they're just going to get Ribena though, they don't realise that.
Well, if I see you at the bar, I'll repay a favour for you. For you treating everybody else to a bevy, I'll treat you to one. All right, Jeff. Thank you so much for chatting to me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a really cool interview, and yeah, sort of. It's actually interesting for me to. You forced me to think about a few things that I'd not really thought about as well. It's a very, very interesting interview. So thank you very much.
No worries. It's been awesome talking to you, and honestly, it's my pleasure. But yeah, so I hope you have a nice evening at the cinema.
Yes.
And I wish you all the best of luck with the releases, and obviously I can't wait to hear them in the album. So everyone, definitely go and buy the album when it comes out. Get the single on the 13th of November. And yeah, thank you once again for chatting, Jack. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Have a nice evening. Enjoy yourself. Happy Halloween.
You too. See you soon.
Bye, Jack. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.